Hi, this is Reverend Bill Banuchi. From the New York State Faith and Freedom Coalition, I heard President Trump's speech for the 250th anniversary celebration, but I felt I had a message that I wanted to share also. As good as his message was, I felt there were some things on my heart that should have been touched on, and they really weren't touched on. So let's say if I were president, this is the message that I would have delivered. The 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence should be a time for all of us to recount and remember the exceptional accomplishments and the great blessings we have enjoyed in prosperity, peace, opportunity, and stability for 250 years. In prosperity, it was in 1863 that Abraham Lincoln, in calling our people to a time of prayer and fasting, he said, and I quote, "We have been the recipients of the choicest bounties of heaven. We have grown in numbers, wealth, and power as no other nation has ever grown." And that was during one of the darkest days of the Civil War in 1863. Imagine what President Lincoln would think about the progress we have made since then. Peace, since our founding, with the exception of the Civil War, brought on us by our own consequences of our own national sin of slavery, Americans have known peace and stability, never experiencing the ravages of war on our own soil, as has been so much a part of world history in other nations of the world. Opportunity, people from around the world still come to our shores for the highly prized American dream, where one's pursuit of happiness finds success as it can in no other nation in the world. Almost all of the world's progress, creativity, and inventions were developed in the womb of American freedom. Only in America can someone rise from poverty to national prominence and stability. The average lifespan of the world's republics is 19 years. Ours is 237 years since our Constitution, and now we're celebrating 250 years from the Declaration, which we count as the birth of this nation. Now, can you imagine what it would be like uh, uh, to go to bed at night and not know what your country was going to look like when you woke up in the morning? That's pretty much the case in most other countries and most other governments that are so unstable. No other one has lasted 237 years under one constitution. Why have we prevailed these 250 years? It was Alexis de Tocqueville, a Frenchman who came to America in the 1830s to study our prison system. He said this in Democracy in America, his book. He said, "America is great because America is good. If America ever ceases to be good, it will cease to be great." Now, what does it mean to be good? It means to be a virtuous society where the general principles of Christianity reign in the hearts and minds of the citizens as expressed in the motto, "One nation under God." Ben Franklin taught us, he said, only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. We have prevailed because our nation was built on a solid foundation. That foundation was, as John Quincy Adams told us, referring to the Declaration of Independence, that, quote, "it laid the cornerstone of human government upon the first precepts of Christianity." Love of God and appreciation for his rare gift of freedom has really helped us to preserve the very gift. We know that the scriptures tell us that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And really, the inverse of that would be true also. It would be true that cursed would be the nation whose God is not the Lord, and that we see around the world. What is it that made us exceptional, really? Our people are no more exceptional than any other inhabitants of the earth, created, all of us, in the image of God. The fact that our governing philosophy and our founding institutions were based on biblical principles is the very reason why we are an exceptional nation. No other nation in world history was established, quote, for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian religion, according to the Mayflower Compact. We are exceptional because we are the only republic to have been created intentionally by the free will of men rather than by conquest or authoritarian rule. We are exceptional because we value freedom above all human pursuits. Better foundation, our national motto, in God we trust. As foundational as our U.S. Constitution is, it is nevertheless founded on the bedrock of the Bible. It begins with the popular phrase, we the people, intended to characterize a self governing, virtuous people schooled in the basic principles of Christianity. For even John Adams told us that our Constitution was made only for a moral and a religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. One of the facets of that foundation is a fixed moral law derived from the governing philosophy based on the Ten Commandments and the Sermon on the Mount. The allegiance to God and the Bible, His moral laws, and a virtuous cause greater than self has produced men and women of courage and character, Americans. Now, contrast that with the French Revolution that happened a little bit after ours, which was rooted in the supremacy of man and the God of reason. The difference couldn't be more clear. How do we then, in 2026, answer Ben Franklin's challenge when he was asked by a prominent Philadelphia woman, Elizabeth Willing Powell, whether he had given her a republic or a monarchy? His answer to her still rings true to us today. He said, a republic, madam, if you can keep it. That has been the challenge to every generation since 1787, and it falls on us today at the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence. 237 years since Ben Franklin and 54 others pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to give us the Constitution that still defines our republic. How do we keep it? I answer we must first reaffirm that solid foundation openly and publicly that we are one nation under God, having the acknowledgement of the supremacy of God foremost in all our public discourse. Abraham Lincoln told us, he said, it is the duty of nations as well as of men to own their dependency upon the overruling power of God and to recognize the sublime truth announced in the Holy Scriptures and proven through all of history that those nations only are blessed whose God is the Lord. Or as President Eisenhower told us much later, he said, without God, there could be no American form of government, nor an American way of life. Recognition of the Supreme Being is a first, the most basic expression of Americanism. Then there must be a firm reliance on a fixed moral law. Today, we're competing with a product of the theory of godless evolution that says we are evolving as human beings and have gained more knowledge than our forebears, and therefore our laws should change to keep up with human progress. With this view, the Constitution written 237 years ago is not taken at face value, but must be adapted to meet current progress. Or as one Supreme Court Justice, Charles Evans Hughes, said, our Constitution is what the judge says it is. This is what progressives call a living constitution. Thomas Jefferson warned us about such. He said such corruption when he said the Constitution should become wax in the hands of the judiciary, which they may twist and shape into any form they please. The historical record demonstrates clearly that though we have progressed in knowledge and of information and technology, human nature has never progressed. The same vices, passions, and corruptions that have driven men and women through the ages is still very much present today. Pick up any newspaper and you'll see validation of that claim. Therefore, the founding principles based on a biblical worldview must be reaffirmed. We must reaffirm a fixed standard of biblical morality and reject the concept of situational ethics where right and wrong is adrift in the sea of human reason and passions. We must reject the false idea that we have evolved to a higher plane of humanity where right and wrong is determined by the particular issues surrounding the matter, or what is known as situational ethics. We must teach the truth of our American history and civics. Ronald Reagan taught us, he said, we've got to teach history based on what is not on what is in fashion, but what's important. If we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. And that's a quote from Reagan. We must engage in the governing process on every level, from dog catcher on up. This is truly a government of the people. If the people of integrity who hold a biblical worldview enter the arena of politics and government, we will continue to prosper. However, if good people abdicate their responsibility, their duty to participate in politics and government, we may surely lose the blessings of liberty. As Daniel Webster warned us, he said, if we and our posterity neglect its instructions and authority, no man can tell how sudden a catastrophe may overwhelm us and bury all of our glory in profound obscurity. We must recognize and defeat the triad of evil that is communism, Islam, and the American left that have allied against Christianity and Western civilization. Communism is the natural outgrowth of socialism. Islam is a political and governmental system of control shrouded in religious garb. The American left seeks to increase government power to control, to bring down traditional values and mores, to make room for godless paganism. These three very disparate groups find their common cause in the overthrow of Western civilization, founded on a Judeo Christian governing philosophy. Spiritually speaking, it's simply the age old battle between God and Satan. So, in conclusion, while we celebrate 250 years of success, growing and developing toward that more perfect union, we must also be rededicated to the responsibility and the duty to steward the precious gift of liberty, or we will lose it. And as John Adams warned us, he said, liberty once lost is lost forever. May it never be so in America. We must rededicate ourselves to two basic missions. We must pray like it all depends on God. Secondly, we must work like it all depends on us to see the freedoms our forebears passed on to us, to see them passed down to our children, to their children, and to our posterity. Christians, time to rise up. Let your light so shine that others will see your good works and glorify the God that you serve. And we will fulfill the vision of Puritan John Winthrop to be that city on a hill for all the world to see. So I pray that God will continue to bless you, give you the wisdom and the peace and the power that you need to be victorious as we work toward another 250 years, unless Jesus comes before then. My opinion is we're not going to see 250 years because I believe that he's going to come way before then. But in the meantime, let us be found working to preserve this freedom for our children and our grandchildren and until we see America, bless God, once again. Thank you for listening. Take care and God bless.